Welcome to Safe Money Talk with Rick-Liuag. Rick is a safe money specialist, primarily serving Southern California, but he's sought after nationally for his expertise in helping people secure their retirements. Mr. Liuag is a licensed insurance professional in the state of California and specializes in working with business owners, people who are near retirement, or those who have already retired with wealth management, income planning, and asset protection strategies. And now, here to talk to you about safe money and retirement, your host, Rick-Liuag.
Hello again and welcome to another show, Safe Money Talk with Rick-Liuag. This is the show where you're going to hear all the threats to your retirement savings and your business. My name is Rick-Liuag. I'm your host. I am a safe money income and retirement specialist here in Southern California. If you're a business owner tonight, you're going to love this show. This entire show is dedicated to you, the business owner. And if you'd like to call in, ask any of our guests, host any questions, or ask me any questions tonight, feel free to call in on the 800 number, 888-909-1050 if you're outside of the 909 area code. If you're local to 909, call 909-888-5222. Tonight's show, we're going to talk about Obamacare and how it impacts business owners. And the main reason why we're going to talk about it tonight is because the employer mandate has been postponed for 2 years in a row. It was actually supposed to take place and start January 1st, 2014. However, the government, in its infinite wisdom, decided that it would postpone it not 1 year, but 2 years, but it does take effect. So a lot of business owners who got a respite for 2014 and 2015 are now facing some pretty big expenses that is absolutely going to impact not only their business, but it's going to impact their employees as well. So we've got two guests tonight that are experts in this field. One is Antonio Muniz from Florida. He's a consultant, an Obamacare consultant. And the other is Mickey Mann, who's an actual agent in Oklahoma that has been dealing with group health insurance and business insurance for over 30 years. So these are our experts tonight. And if you have any questions for either one of them, feel free to call in on those numbers. But I want to introduce you now to a gentleman that I've used as a resource now for almost 4 years, since the Affordable Care Act was enacted and started. This has been one of my go-to experts, Antonio Muniz. He's a consultant for business owners and chambers of commerce all throughout Central Florida and advises organizations and businesses on how to navigate the Affordable Care Act. Antonio, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Thanks for joining the show. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself, your professional background, and what your firm actually does.
Well, again, my name is Antonio Muniz, and I'm the Chief Strategist at Muniz & Associates, the healthcare access and affordability experts here in Central Florida. We're based out of Orlando, Florida. Our firm helps organizations of all sizes understand the Affordable Care Act and shows them not only how they can restructure the employee benefit plans, not only to attract and retain top talent, but also increase employee productivity and morale and lower costs in this new world of Obamacare. We're laser focused on healthcare access and affordability, and we're experts in that field. In fact, a couple of years ago, actually 2003, I wrote and published a book called the Obamacare Rescue Plan, which is a simple 5-step strategy that individuals, families, and primarily business owners can use to secure access to health care at an affordable way. As you can imagine, Rick, the Obamacare has evolved over the last several years, so it's a kind of a moving target. So I was forced to publish revisions both in 2014 and 2015.
Right. We tell clients not to write anything down in ink, to write anything down in pencil when it comes to the Affordable Care Act. Antonio, you've talked to businesses and organizations all day, every day, and you have now, and you've been abreast of this since 2010 when the actual law was passed. What trends are you seeing in your marketplace today with regards to the Affordable Care Act?
That's a great question. There are many things happening at the same time, but I want to just maybe highlight a few of the major trends that we're seeing. Well, we're seeing across the country, but they get amplified in states like California and Florida. We're just kind of unique states. And some of those trends in healthcare are that demand for services and medical services continues to increase and continues to increase dramatically. As you know, Rick, there's over 10,000 new baby boomers added each and every day.
Right.
So we're adding 10,000 people who are getting into Medicare and seeking health services. At the same time, if you listen to the reports coming from the federal government, since the first open enrollment took place a couple of years ago, there have been over 17 million newly insureds added to the roster. So for the first time in our history, in the history of this country, we have less than 10% of the population uninsured. So that's what's driving demand. On the other side of that, the supply side, supply for healthcare services is in decline due to huge consolidations in many segments of the industry. And if you watch the news or hear the news on the radio, you've heard about big hospitals buying little hospitals and becoming huge hospitals. You hear about primary care physician groups being merged with hospitals or consolidated into larger groups. And you're seeing, also on the pharmacy side, how big pharmacies like Walgreens are buying Rite Aid and CVS is buying Obamacare. So when you have huge increasing demand and at the same time you're choking down on supply, economics 101 will tell you that prices must go up. And that's the third trend that we're seeing. We're actually seeing prices going up in all segments of healthcare.
And you're attributing that to a constricting healthcare network or a healthcare industry that's constricting instead of growing, correct?
Absolutely.
Through consolidation. Okay.
On the provider side, you look in networks that are shrinking. There's consolidation on the hospital side. There's consolidation, like I mentioned already, on hospital groups, primary care physicians, pharmacies. So prices go up, and we're seeing across the country an average of 9.5% increase on health insurance premiums. That's on the individual side.
Okay.
Group side is 2 times that.
So
we're seeing a year-over-year price increases in prescription drug costs of 14%. So the overall cost of care is increasing significantly.
So as we predicted 2.5 years ago, access is decreasing, so you're confirming that, and costs are increasing because the bill basically transitions and transfers risk and cost, not from the insurance company, to the insured. That's what you're seeing, correct?
That's right.
Now, a lot of businesses that have or maybe have not offered group health insurance benefits since the bill was passed in 2010. They've elected to opt out and not offer benefits at all. What are you seeing that their attitude is now that the employer mandate, it looks like, unless they repeal it in the next 6 weeks, it looks like it's absolutely cast in concrete. So businesses over 50 employees are now going to be mandated to offer health insurance to 95% of their employees and what's called affordable health insurance. What's happening to the businesses that you're communicating with as far as when they actually see in front of them a proposal of what it's going to cost to comply with this new law?
Well, the first reaction is shock and disbelief.
Right.
And I will split the population of business owners into 2. The ones who I'm calling the newcomers, these are the ones that have 50 to 100 employees that are now starting to pay attention to the mandate.
Because they
have been kind of ignoring it for the last couple of years.
Right.
And they're finally coming to a realization that they need to act and they need to act quickly. This is not something that they can keep postponing and putting off and making a decision not to do anything about it. And they're seeking that information. What I'm getting, when I talk to business owners who haven't had that conversation, then the reaction is shock because they're hearing it for the first time. When I'm talking to these new quote unquote new converts who have talked to their insurance broker, they have talked to other individuals, and they're coming to us, and what they're realizing is they have been largely misinformed. And when they realize that, they hit the panic button. Panic sets in. So those are very interesting conversations for the new guys, the 50 to 100 employees. But on the other side of that, the individuals and business owners who we have engaged over the last 18 to 24 months, it's gratifying to see that they're slowly becoming better consumers of healthcare. Quite frankly, because they have to. As an example, individuals who we have worked with in the last 18 to 24 months, and today they realize that, hey, we understand that telemedicine plans exist and how they work and how affordable they can be. They understand what prescription drug discount plans are and how they can play into the Affordable Care Act and how they can play into ensuring that everyone has access to affordable health care. So those kinds of small wins are very, very gratifying.
I've been seeing, and I've been saying this since the beginning of 2014, and I've been shunned and I've been battered for saying this, is that I see that the number one mistake that business owners are making regarding Obamacare, regarding the Affordable Care Act and what they are required to do, the biggest mistake that I see business owners making is getting their Obamacare advice from their group health insurance agent. Do you agree? Am I wrong there?
No, absolutely. That has been my experience as well.
Okay.
Those are the ones that come in ill-informed, and then they realize that there are better options. They're paying way too much money for what they have, and they may be causing them more harm than good.
Right. The group health insurance agent is not really incentivized to tell the business owner all of their options, correct?
That's right. And really their bread and butter is on the really large groups, 250, 300 employees or greater. And there are better options in that space too, but since our practice concentrates in a small to mid-sized business owner here in Central Florida or the state of Florida in general, we don't get too many of those. What we get are smaller employers, i.e. 50, 40 employee groups that are getting bad advice from group health plans, from group health brokers.
Besides the cost of providing a group health insurance plan, which they have to, we're going to talk in the second segment. We're going to take a break here in a few minutes, but in the second segment, I want to get to what your solutions are. Last Friday, you might want to comment on this. Last Friday, I had a phone interview with a woman that owns a business up in Northern California. She's had the business for 15 years. She's got 120 employees, 120 full-time employees, and she's been offering group health insurance for 13 years as a benefit because she's in the medical field and she wants to be able to provide benefits because she has highly qualified employees. And last year, she came to the conclusion that she could no longer pay for 100% of her employees, so she backed off and she said, okay, we're going to pay for 50% of the employees portion, not the spouse and dependents, but we're going to only pay 50% of the employees portion. And that totaled up about between $18,000 and $20,000 a month for her. And she told me that only 40% of her employees elected to participate in the group plan at a 50% payment, and the other two-thirds, the other 90 people decided that they would, 80 or 90 employees decided that they would go to the exchange because they could get a subsidized plan at the exchange. And I told her, I said, starting in 2016, you can't do that anymore. In fact, Rose, I said, in 2016, you've got 3 choices and all of them are bad, all of them. And I said, you can offer group health insurance. It's going to cost you close to $600,000 a year to do that, to comply with the law. And I'm guessing that $600,000 a year is going to cripple your company. Your second choice is to get draconian and just cancel everything. Tell all of your employees you're no longer offering any benefits and send them to the exchange, which might anger them. And it's not probably what you want to do. And then the third choice is the choice you have recommended to a lot of your clients. And we're going to get into that in just a second, but probably in the second segment because we'll have more time. But aside from how this is impacting negatively the business owner and creating sticker shock, Antonio, is it impacting the employer's employees at all? Are you seeing that?
Absolutely. You have the employers getting the sticker shock, but they also are getting hit with all the compliance requirements that they now need to take care of. Right. And that costs money and costs time. On the employee side, it's like anything. Most of us pay very little attention to the fine print. And most employees had it in their minds that, hey, I work for somebody, I work for an employer. That employer, according to what I'm hearing on the news, will take care of my health insurance. There's an assumption of someone's going to take care of it.
Well, on that same note, most employers are not aware of the fact that once they offer group health insurance, in their business, regardless if their employees qualify for a subsidy or not, they've automatically exempted their employee and prohibited their employee based on the law from getting a subsidized plan. So it might cost the employee a lot more to participate in the employer's group plan than they would pay out of pocket if they were able to go to the exchange, correct?
That's exactly right. And that's the big, the shocker for both the employers and the employees is exactly what you said, Rick, that when an employer offers a group health plan to the employees, it automatically makes that entire household, not just the employee, ineligible for any federal subsidies regardless of household income.
Right.
So it's costing them a lot of money. It can cost their employees a lot of money.
Wow. We're on with Antonio Muniz. He is an Obamacare consultant, consulting organizations and businesses in Central Florida. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back with Antonio, we're going to talk about some of the solutions and the recommendations that he's giving these organizations and businesses. You're listening to Safe Money Talk with Rick-Liuag on KCAA 1050 AM. We'll be right back.
Never before has there been a piece of legislation that impacts so many Americans in so many ways as the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. This ponderous bill is now the law of the land, yet many of us do not yet fully understand how it impacts our health care, our finances, even our retirement. It's hard to get past all the political rhetoric and grandstanding politicians and learn the truth about Obamacare. That's why Rick wants to offer you his free Obamacare Survival Kit. This kit contains information you need right now to protect your business and retirement from the effects of Obamacare. There are no strings attached, and you have everything to gain and nothing to lose by calling Rick's toll-free number right now and reserving your copy. That's 1-800-284-3887. Your survival kit is waiting for you now at 1-800-284-3887. That's 1-800-284-3887.
Welcome back to Safe Money Talk. This is Rick-Liuag. I'm your host, KCAA 1050 AM. Before the break, we were talking to Obamacare consultant, strategic consultant, Antonio Muniz, who consults with organizations and business owners on the Affordable Care Act in Central Florida. We did talk about, before the break, all of the problems that business owners are now seeing and facing and finally being confronted with starting 2016. They've been able to push those off to the side for the last 2 years, but now Antonio and I are finding out that these business owners are getting sticker shock. They want more information. And before the break, we said basically that most business owners that we talk to, the biggest mistake they're making is getting their Obamacare, their affordable care advice from a group health insurance agent. So aside from the fact that the group health insurance agent, Antonio, is not really incentivized to tell the business owner all of their options, when you sit down with and consult with a business, for example, not so much an organization, but a business, what are some of the things that you're recommending if they say to you, hey, there's just no possible way, like my client Rose up in Northern California. She said, Rick, there's just no possible way I can afford $600,000 a year to comply with this law. What are my options? What can I do besides a draconian approach and just launching everything and sending all my employees in the street and not providing any benefits? So, Antonio, when you consult with these clients, if they don't want to offer group health insurance, what are some of the strategies that you're employing and deploying for these business owners?
Well, the first thing I tell them is not to panic and just be open to listen to opportunities and alternatives, because the way that they may have understood healthcare and particularly health insurance in the past really no longer applies. Since 2010, these both healthcare and health insurance have changed dramatically and will continue to evolve. So at the same time, don't wait until the last minute to take action, and because you either act or get acted upon. So the first thing that I would tell them is, in the event that they have a group health plan in place, we advise them 99% of the time, get rid of it. And get rid of it now. And what they don't understand sometimes, or they may not realize sometimes, is they can exit a group plan at any moment.
Right.
They don't have to wait for renewal. They don't have to wait for open enrollment. They can exit that at any time. And that creates a 60-day window where we can exercise other options. So that's the first thing I tell them. If they have a group plan, get rid of it. The reason that they had a group plan before is, group plans were good in the past. Before 2010, there were good reasons to get a group plan.
Right.
Since Obamacare, since ACA, I've actually had clients who say, some of my employees are thinking they're going to find another job someplace else where they don't offer a group plan. It used to be a way to recruit and retain talent. Now it's a way to repel talent.
Wow. Okay, so that's something new that I've not heard. Okay, great.
Yeah. So that's only if they have a group plan. If they don't, what we advise is, we get engaged and have a conversation about basically let's baseline where they are today.
Well, let me ask you something about discontinuing the group plan. There's a specific time when everybody can purchase their health insurance for next year, okay? And that is from November 1st through February 15th, roughly, through the end of February, where they can purchase their plan for next year. What happens if a company has a group plan and it's after or outside of that open enrollment? Does that mean that those employees are left high and dry without insurance for the remainder of the year until open enrollment?
No, that's not the case. After open enrollment ends, and if an organization has a group plan and they decide to exit, which they can do at any time, that actually creates what's called a special enrollment period. And that special enrollment period basically gives the employer and the employees 60 days from the day that they exit the group plan to secure individual coverage in the private market or through the marketplace.
Okay. It's considered a qualifying event? Is that what it's called?
A qualifying event. Right. Qualifying event for special enrollment period.
So if I'm a business owner, I'm offering a group plan, I get my renewal and it's out of control, and I decide to discontinue my group, my employees can, even if it's outside of open enrollment, they can still qualify to get a plan. They can get their own plan.
That's correct.
So once I discontinue my group plan, what happens then? Aren't I exposed to a penalty? And what is the penalty? And then can I get around that?
No, you're not exposed to a penalty necessarily. I mean, are we talking about a 50 or more employee group?
Well,
or are we talking...
address that, because that's one of the big confusions for business owners is who is susceptible to the penalty, because they're hearing contradicting conversations from people. Is that I thought I had a $2,000 per employee penalty, and now I'm hearing that there might be a $3,000 per employee penalty, and there's a lot of confusion there. And then some business owners don't know if they're susceptible to the penalty or not. So why don't you make that clear to the audience and listeners now? Who actually is susceptible to the penalty if they don't offer group health insurance?
Very well, and that's a great point. Starting in 2016, if you're a business owner that has 50 or more FTEs, those are full-time equivalents. A full-time equivalent is calculated by adding up all of your full-time employees, and those are the individuals who work 30 hours a week or more, and add up all the hours of all the part-time employees and divide those by 120, and you add those into what is called a full-time equivalent number.
Okay.
If you have more than 50 FTEs or full-time equivalents in 2016, then you're under the employer mandate, which means that you must provide health insurance to your employees or pay a penalty. Be subject to a penalty.
So if you have 50 full-time employees or more, you're screwed. If you have less than 50 full-time employees, you don't have to offer group health insurance, and if you don't, you won't have a penalty.
Right. If you have 60 full-time equivalents or less, you're not under the mandate.
Okay.
So technically, as an employer, you don't have to do anything. But I will tell, and this is the advice I give all my clients, is don't forget that anything that affects your employee affects your business. And all of your employees are under the individual mandate, so they need to comply. So don't leave them out there hanging, because what's going to happen is you're going to have a productivity problem in your business, and it's still going to affect you. Right.
You're going to have a mutinous employee base if you just leave them hanging, correct? Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's how much is the penalty for 2016 if they don't offer?
Actually, the penalty is going up. The penalty is going to be $2,200 per. If you have, let me back up a little bit. If you have more than 50 FTEs, if you have a business with more than 50 full-time equivalents, and you do not offer health insurance, then you're subject to a penalty of $2,200 per employee minus deferred, with the exception of the first 30.
So you have
60 employees.
You have a 30
back up
employee
30.
exemption, right?
Exactly, a 30 employee exemption. That's a better way of saying it. Now, if you do offer, there's two types of penalty. There's a penalty A and a penalty B. What I just described is penalty A. Penalty B is, let's say you have the 60 employees and you offer a group plan, but that group plan, even though it's compliant, it complies with the Obamacare, it is considered not affordable or unaffordable. And not affordable means that the employee's contribution to the cost of the health insurance premium exceeds 9.5% of that employee's wages. So Obamacare says that no one should pay more than 9.5% of their wages towards health insurance premiums. So if you have a plan that is compliant in every other way, but it's unaffordable for for all your employees, then you could be subject to penalty B. And penalty B is $3,000 per individual who found that the insurance that you provided is unaffordable.
Well, let me give you an example. Right, and back to my client that I talked to last Friday, Rose. Remember that she was offering 50% of the premium, and she had 80 people going to the exchange. Now, I told Rose, and this is true, I told Rose that she could be subject to a $3,000 penalty for every single one of those employees that went to the exchange and were approved by the exchange, because the exchange won't let you in if you put down that you're offered group health insurance. The exchange will kick you back out and say, "Hey, listen, you need to go apply to your you need to go enroll into your group plan." However, it asks, is that plan not affordable? Does it fall in the guidelines? And then they actually can go through the process. And I've told Rose, for every one of those 80 employees that go to the exchange next year, this year you weren't penalized, but next year you can be facing a $3,000 per employee penalty for every one of those 80. That's $240,000 on top of the $190,000 that you're paying now for the 40 employees that are taking it. So there's so many landmines in this to actually provide group health insurance. I can see why you are recommending to your employers, just blow the group up. Don't even mess with the landmines. Just go ahead and discontinue your group plan. However, they've got to do something. So what are you recommending? If they do blow up the group plan because they don't want to do any of the accounting for the IRS, which we're not even going to get into tonight. They don't want to verify that every single one of their employees, they don't want to verify their whole family income. So they don't want to ask each employee, how much does your husband or wife make? What's your total household income? There's so many reasons why employers should not offer group health insurance because it's such a pain in the neck. So they take your advice, Antonio, and they blow up the group. What are you recommending they do?
Well, we have a process that has been proven to be very successful, where we actually have what's called a private exchange or private marketplace, and we actually take it to task to enroll all their employees and their families in the individual plans. So what happens is that what we find by doing that is that individuals, employees, or families get better coverage. They have access to the subsidies, the federal subsidies, so their overall cost can be much lower than that we're paying in the group plan situation just for the employee. And, satisfaction goes through the roof. It's a great benefit, a real benefit to the employees, the employer, and their family. So we're finding that has been the best way for us to handle those cases. And I'd like to share a couple of stats on just the clients that we have been able to help over the last couple of years. The average business client, when we go through this process, they decrease their health insurance cost or reduce their health insurance cost by 34%. And of all the individuals who we have taken through this process, going through a private marketplace and getting enrolled into individual health plans, of all of those that we have been able to help over the last 2 years, 24% of those insurers have gotten what we call free-to-them insurance, which means that the subsidy that they were eligible for exceeds the cost of their insurance policy. So it's amazing the results that we're able to get for the business owners and their employees who are willing to listen.
But keep in mind, the business owner could still be susceptible to the penalty, but the overall cost is still less with the penalty and the employees going through the private exchange than if the employer were providing group health insurance directly, with a lot less accounting, reporting, and not subjecting the employee to higher cost to add the spouse and dependents, right? So
yes, and I will tell you that without getting too deep into the taxation and financials and penalties, that 34% figure is a net figure after taxes are taken care of, after penalties are taken care of. It's a 34% net reduction.
Wow. So
to the business owner.
So we've got to take a break now, and I want to thank you for being a guest. There's a lot more that we can talk about. But Antonio, the bottom line from this segment is that basically every business owner over 50 employees has to comply starting 2016. There's no getting around it. But there is alternatives from just offering a straight group health insurance plan to your employees, correct?
That's exactly right. Most businesses, in our space, let's call it less than 100 employees, will be better served with individual plans going through a private marketplace.
Wow.
Down to a group plan.
We've got to take a break now. You're listening to Safe Money Talk with Rick Liuag on KCAA 1050 AM and 106.5 FM. We'll be right back.
This is KCAA.
Welcome back to Safe Money Talk with Rick Liuag. Before the break, we were talking to Antonio Muniz about the Affordable Care Act, what business owners are mandated to do starting 2016. Our next guest is an actual agent. He actually is hands-on. Antonio is a consultant, is more of a strategist. Mickey actually works directly with clients, and he would pretty much be the contractor, where Antonio is like the architect. Mickey's been working with business clients now for over individuals and business clients for over 30 years, specializing in alternatives to Obamacare. Mickey, are you there?
Yes, Rick, I am. Thank you.
Hi, Mick. Thanks for joining us. Tell the audience a little bit about your background and your agency and what you do.
Well, Rick, I'm an independent agent and a broker in Oklahoma. Have been in the business, and you made a little mistake there. It's been over 40 years, but I don't want to date myself too much. But I have a number of individual clients, a number of group clients. So I'm very active, and right now it's renewal time for the individuals and the groups. So we've been extremely busy trying to salvage what we can for our clients right now.
Well, Mick, we're talking about business owners specifically tonight, okay? So
yes.
So tell the listeners, especially those that are listening that own a business, what are you seeing out there when you're meeting with your clients? What is different for 2016 that may have been what's different for 2016 than ever before? What are you seeing, and what's the difference for 2016?
Well, number one, Rick, we're seeing, and our rate increases haven't been as great. I mean, our rate increases have been approaching, because of the age factor and the medical trend. It's approaching 15% for most of our groups. So we're seeing rate increases. We're seeing the employer having to move to higher deductibles, less participation with the employee, and most of the carriers require 50% participation from the employer, paying half of the employee cost. So we're seeing this, but we're seeing a large consolidation in the industry, so our market is shrinking, so we don't have as many carriers to deal with to be able to get competitive rates. Our networks are shrinking, so we're seeing a shrinking of our marketplace, but we're seeing the premiums increase fairly steadily, just because of a lot of the mandates that are now coming in, and the additional tax burdens that are coming in for 2016.
So what you're seeing is what I'm talking to consultants all over the country, and I'm seeing it out here in California. You're seeing just the opposite of what was promised. You're seeing higher. You're seeing higher cost, not lower cost. You're seeing less competition, not more competition, and you're seeing fewer choices for doctors and hospitals, not more choices for doctors and hospitals.
Oh, most definitely. We're seeing the networks. Literally, the carriers are trying to control the cost because of the exchange, and if you have the shop, the small employer group exchange, it's like where I live. I live in a city that has about 120,000 people, and our hospital is not even in the network for the exchange product.
Wow.
So, and we're the third largest city in the state. So,
and Mickey, this is only the second year of the Affordable Care Act, and we're already seeing a recipe for disaster. Premiums going up, carriers saying, heck with it, we're not providing plans in that state anymore. So carriers shrinking, so fewer choices, and networks shrinking, not from the doctors opting out, but the insurance companies kicking the doctors and hospitals off the network because they want less utilization, correct?
Well, I think we're seeing doctors opt out of it too because they don't want to take the negotiated rates that the insurance company wants them to take to be in this network that's shrinking.
Okay.
So as a provider, the insurance companies are coming and saying, we're going to pay you X number of dollars for this procedure. Well, a lot of physicians are saying, no, we're not going to do that at all. We're not going to be in the network. So,
well, Mickey, we're seeing that in Medicare, but are you saying we're seeing that in group health insurance too?
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. We're seeing employers having difficulty, especially in a lot of the rural areas. We're seeing employers having difficulty for their employees finding physicians to be able to treat the employees without the employee having to come to a major city or without them having to drive 60 miles to basically see a doctor or go to the hospital.
Mickey, I know you're in Oklahoma, so your rates are going to be different than, say, California, for example, or Texas or Florida. But on average, and you mentioned a number, you said kind of in a cavalier way, we've only seen a 15% premium increase. But, Mickey, if it's 15% a year in 5 years, that's a pretty hefty jump in price. I mean, that if you can expect a 15% increase in premium every year, that gets to, that starts building up, and that's just premium cost. That's not reflective of if there's a big, like most business owners don't know this, is that if you offer a group plan and somebody in the group gets a major catastrophic illness, that increases your rate the next year, correct?
No, not anymore.
Not anymore. Okay, good.
No, with the new rate structures, everything's based on age and geographical area.
So it's not based on utilization from the year before.
It's not utilization per se. Now they may raise the rates, ask for a rate increase through the insurance commissioner's office because of the losses. I'll give you an example. It's on the individual side, but I'll give you an example. In Oklahoma, Blue Cross Blue Shield lost $400 million last year, on the individual market. So they went in and requested a rate increase, and the rate increase is about 30%.
Wow.
So, and that's either on exchange or off exchange. The rate increase is right at 30%. They lost about $350 million in New Mexico in the individual market, went to the commissioner, requested a rate increase, or they denied their rate increase, so they're not going to be selling individual insurance in New Mexico. So with the losses that are compounding because you have to, there's no pre-existing conditions, you have the mandated essential health benefits of the colonoscopies and this, it's going to drive the cost up. You have to spend 85% of your revenue back to the client or reimburse them. So, they're having a lot of losses just in that area, and I'm not defending the insurance companies because we're all consumers.
Well, Mickey,
But it's with the mandates that are out here and with the lack of market out here, there's not really a lot of competition.
Okay, let me ask you this, Mickey, from a business owner perspective. You're a business owner. I'm a business owner, but we don't have that many employees we don't have over 50 employees. But
right.
From a business owner perspective, is there anything positive about this law? Is there anything positive for my business? Is there anything good comes out of this?
No, I can emphatically say no. There isn't from a business owner's perspective. I've just worked on a renewal for one of my clients, and it's not a large employer by any means, 30, 35 employees. but his rates went up to 15%. And he brought up the same fact that you did. He said, Mickey, in 5 years, he said, my rates just at a 15%. He said, we're increasing 75% over what I'm already at right now.
Almost doubling.
And I'm spending $12,000 a month right now for my employees.
So if there's nothing good about it from a business owner perspective, let's just hypothetically say that I'm your client, and I've been your client now for 10 or 15 years, and you've been providing me group health insurance advice for 15 years. I'm coming to you and I'm saying, Mickey, this is unsustainable. I can't afford this, to continue this. What can I do? I have 60 employees. I'm forced to comply, but what can I do? Now, I don't know if you heard Antonio Moniz prior in the second segment, but what are you going to advise me, your client for 15 years? What are you going to tell me that I can do? I know what most group health insurance agents are telling their clients because I'm hearing it. Okay, but what are you? Because I know you. You're not going to mislead anybody.
In our market, the employer wants to keep the insurance to be able to keep his good employees.
Okay.
So we're having to look and become creative, either raising the deductibles. We're moving more to HSAs, health savings accounts, where the employer is helping fund part of that with the higher deductible. So we're starting to see more self-funded programs. It depends on the group's demographics, but if you have a young workforce in their 30s, you can go to a self-funded. If you have an older workforce, more medical problems, things like this, a self-funded program wouldn't necessarily work. It might work 1 year, but it won't work the second or third year. You have stop losses in there, so your exposure as an employer is not as great necessarily as a fully insured program. But there are some alternatives that we have to work. Very few employers that I talk to are just saying we're going to quit providing. Number one, the exchange here in Oklahoma is so bad that you would lose your employees.
Okay, so unlike Antonio, who's recommending to every one of his clients that they discontinue the group, you're not finding that's not an acceptable alternative to your clients or in Oklahoma, let's say.
In our market, it's not an acceptable alternative for the simple fact that with like I said, the network for the market here for an individual, there's 11,000 providers, which is doctors, physical therapists, everything else for the whole state of Oklahoma. And out of that 11,000, you may have, like I said, you may have half a dozen hospitals that are available. And the doctors, you just literally might have 2 or 3 doctors in a town of 100,000 people.
Okay, so in Florida and in California, Antonio is advising in Florida, and I'm advising clients in California, for the most part, to discontinue the group because it's so cost prohibitive here. And Rose is a perfect example. $600,000. That's a lot of money. That's a big chunk. But that's not the case in Oklahoma. So you're having to work around the fact that business owners still want to provide benefits. They're just looking for a way to do it. So
in California, where you're at, you have more people in one county out there than we'll have in the whole state here in Oklahoma.
Right.
So in Oklahoma and in Texas and well, not necessarily Texas, but Kansas and New Mexico, it's completely different demographic, and we're very heavy in the oil industry, even though the market's gone way down there. But business owners here have to compete with the larger employers that are offering the benefits. So to be able to hire and maintain quality employees, they're having to offer health insurance. But trust me, it's getting much more difficult, and we're having to become much more creative in finding, like I said, we're having to go to higher deductibles. We're having to go self-funded, and the self-funding works very well out here, like I said, if it's the right group. So
as most
we're
people
having to become creative.
As a lot of people like to say, California and New York are usually a few years ahead of the rest of the country in some trends. And out here, I think what you're going to start seeing, Mickey, is what you're going to start seeing in Oklahoma eventually, is it's going to be so cost prohibitive that business owners are going to be forced to opt out of group health insurance and go another route. And that's going to probably be either paying the penalty and then providing some kind of allowance to an employee that they can then go to the exchange, and they're going to find that they're going to get a lower cost because they get a subsidy. What I tell clients out here, Mickey, is that, hey, if the government was going to subsidize your advertising without any strings attached, would you take advantage of it? If the government was going to subsidize your electric bill without any strings attached, would you take advantage of it? And the answer is always yes. And I say, well, look, the government's willing to subsidize your benefits package. Why don't you take advantage of it? We're going to show you how to do it. We've got to wrap it up for tonight, Mick, but thank you very much. I mean, it's been very enlightening. 2 separate consultants in 2 different parts of the country. The problems are identical, is that costs are going up, networks are shrinking, choices are becoming fewer for business owners, but they all have to provide group health insurance starting January 1st, 2016, or pay a penalty. But the good news is, for everybody out there, is that there is an alternative to just straight purchasing group health insurance. Mick, thanks a lot for being a guest tonight. God bless you. Take care.
My pleasure, Rick. Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
To recap the show, if you're a business owner, starting January 1st, 2016, and you have over 50 employees, you've got to start offering group health insurance. So get some advice, typically from somebody that understands all of your options. Next week, we've got a heck of a show for you. If you're a senior, you're not going to want to miss that. Thanks again for joining us this week for Safe Money Talk. Make sure you tell all of your friends that this is the place that you can come and hear about all the threats to your retirement savings in your business. See you next week. This is Rick Liuag signing out, KCAA 1050 AM and 106.5 FM. Take care. Have a great week.